Welcome back to the Dungeon Master's Corner. Today, we hand the reins over to another DM, our very own Matt. Take it away, man.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to DM Corner. I'm your host, Matt, and joining me today is Brian.
Hello.
And Nicole.
Hi.
This DM Corner is called The Kindness of Strangers. This was involving another D&D group that I was in. I had been a player in a homebrew campaign they were running when they decided to take a break from it, and I asked if they wanted me to run Mines of Phandelver for them. And this was my second time DMing. I had run a one-shot with my main group once before, but this was my first time running a full module. So we run through Mines of Phandelver, and they're looking for clues on the location of Wave Echo Cave. And they managed to track everything down to the Redbrand's mansion. They fight their way through the Redbrand's mansion and make their way to the final boss room where the leader is. The door's closed and they can hear someone on the inside. And the subject of our story, the halfling rogue Jimmy Band, decides to go into the leader's room alone to try and negotiate. So he goes inside and closes the door behind him. At this point, knowing what's inside, I look at the rest of the group and I ask them, does anyone follow him? And all of them say no. At this point, my only option is I take Jimmy aside. I do a one-on-one conversation with him. He negotiates with the bugbear leader of the Redbrands, and all throughout this conversation, which is going nowhere, by the way, the other person who was in the room that he didn't know about, that was hiding behind him, sneaks up on him and knocks him out from behind in one hit. At this point, I then return to the rest of the group and I ask them, is anyone listening at the door? At which point they say no. So I have them roll perception. I tell them, you hear a loud bang and a thud from the inside of the room.
You know, thinking that might spur them into motion.
Yeah, the idea was to try and get them to do anything. Their decision is, we continue waiting. At this point, I'm asking them, how long are you waiting? And they're like, oh, an hour or two. I tell them, okay, so an hour passes. Do you do anything? You do not. You've heard some movement inside. Do you do anything? No, we do nothing. After another hour passes, in dead silence, they finally look inside the room, and it is completely empty, where the main villain, all the evidence, and any treasure has been removed out the back door, and Jimmy Band is also nowhere to be seen. At this point, I end the session, because what else am I supposed to do at this point? In the following weeks, I contacted my main group and got Nicole and Brian to help me run a one-shot for Jimmy Band to escape from prison. Because my only other option is to kill him, and I didn't want to kill him because his party members are assholes. So, I have Jimmy come over so we can do a one-shot. And it opens with him locked in a dungeon with a couple other people.
Calling us people is an interesting way of saying that.
Yeah, so he wakes up in prison and he sees in the cell next to him Nicole,
A tabaxi ranger that went by the name of Little Star, who had an animal companion panther named Phantom.
And also Brian's character.
I played the Kenku cleric, Bird Brain.
Yeah,
woke up to a cat and a bird.
To be fair, I don't think he was really prepared for us.
No.
As players, not just our characters, as players.
Because we were...
Yeah, he
were
was
in.
definitely not ready for
We
that.
were ready.
I think one of the things that describes us as role players is we're ready to role play our own characters into the grave. Like, we have a concept, we stick to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he knew how to talk to a Kenku at that point. But at least Little Star could communicate well.
Yes, I could. And thanks to Jimmy, we were all able to get out of the cell that we were in. He's actually the one who busted the locks.
So Jimmy, as a rogue, breaks them out of the cell. Once everyone's free, they start going through this dungeon. This was a dungeon that I created with just a random dungeon generator online, and I did slight modifications to it. And let's see, they encountered...
Oh, there were goblins, there were skeletons.
Oh, and everyone's favorite, the skull.
Yes, the skull.
That was actually a pretty terrifying encounter.
So there was one room that I was really looking forward to, because as they go through, they encountered a few goblins playing cards. They encountered skeletons, undead, and then the Room of Bones. And in that room, there was a skull. As they entered the room, the skull ignited on fire and rose off of the ground. This was meant to be the big fight of the dungeon. Hey Brian, how'd that fight go?
Well, it went interestingly. I did the normal cleric thing at first. I tried to turn undead, and
Which
that
is
failed.
really good idea. It was a really good idea. It's a shame it didn't work.
Shame it didn't work. So we did a round of combat where... Did it drop a fireball on us?
I think it did, actually.
Yeah,
Which is why it's like, oh, we cannot take another hit like that.
so it dropped a fireball on them to show them this is the big creature. You guys gotta work together to fight this thing.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, we did.
Or did they?
We absolutely did. But, a caster is a problem.
And there's only one solution.
So the Kenku cleric decides to go over and cast silence on the skull.
I think your phrase to use it was, shut up, bird brain.
Shut up, bird brain! Which is how he got his name in the first place.
Mhm.
Because his old guildmaster used to call him bird brain and tell him to shut up all the time. So it became my verbal component. And that was the last verbal component used in that fight because that wasn't a big room, as I recall.
It's a decently sized room.
Yeah. So at that point, with it silenced, it can't cast spells. It can't attack because they all just left the room.
Oh no, we knocked it down to the point that we could run from it. The ranger and rogue worked in tandem and we destroyed it. For the couple hours it would be down because we didn't know to...
Wait, no, because I think I did that intelligence check.
Yeah, you did know.
I knew to sanctify it.
Yeah, so we knocked it down to the point that you were able to do that.
We permanently destroyed that thing.
Yeah, so after you put silence on it, the rest of you guys went in and destroyed it as it couldn't do any of its spells. And then the cleric passed your Arcana check to know that it needed to have holy water put on it to destroy it permanently.
I would also like to point out that I had a -1 to intelligence.
So there goes my big fight.
But it only went well because we were able to work together as a cohesive party.
Which, if we know anything about the last party you were DMing...
Yeah. So after that, you managed to find... Because I had to find some way to move the story forward, Jimmy found a map to Wave Echo Cave, which was here for some reason. And you managed to escape from the dungeon.
Mm-hmm. We got him all the way back to Fandalen to reconnect with his party.
And gave them the MacGuffin to get their campaign back on track.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was the one shot to restore the campaign. After that, we eventually did lead into Storm King's Thunder, where we had more of exactly the same stuff with that party. So it does seem like the party learned nothing from this whole thing. On the other hand, I certainly learned something. I have been spoiled by amazing DMs and party members that are interested in the story and, actually want the other party members to survive. So it's interesting when you have a different group than the one you usually play with. You need to be on the same page with them if you want to either be running a murder hobo campaign or people that want to be roleplay heavy in their play style. If you aren't, it can just cause groups to fall apart, because we never did finish that Storm King's Thunder campaign. So try and keep in mind the players you're with and their intended play style. Thank you for joining us for DM's Corner. We'll see you next time. Bye.
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 Thanks, Matt. Great job on cleaning up that mess your players left you. And thank you for joining us for another episode of Dungeon Master's Corner. If you'd like to support us, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/reliablychaotic so we can cover our bail. You can also drop us a line on Twitter at Reliably Chaotic. We'd love to hear from you.